Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Annie. Hey, Annie, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you. And before we get started, let me give you just a little bit of background on Annie, and you guys can kind of get to know her before we get started. So, Annie is committed to transforming achievement from good to great by teaching people to rewrite their excuses into successful accomplishments. She's an international speaker. An expert on living an exceptional life. She will motivate, inspire you, and activate your audience to remove the roadblocks that stand in the way. Your audience will walk in a wow factor that includes practical tools to immediately impact their lives, both professionally and personally. Wow, that's amazing, and I really love that, and definitely want to know more about the things that you do as an international speaker, and how you motivate and help people through your message, right? I wanted to get more about you and find out more about your background, right? Before any of this happened, growing up and just going through that journey. So if you can share some of that with us.
Absolutely. And that is why I always say my message is really personal and professional. So my growing up, I was the middle of 7 kids raised by a single mom. We were born in 8 short years with no sets of twins. And my mother struggles with mental illness, undiagnosed and untreated. So we grew up in extreme poverty and really without a mom or a dad that could provide for us. In addition to that, I had a learning disability. And so I didn't really know how to read. Still to this day, people check my spelling. So a lot of adversity, poverty, education, neglect, unsupported abuse, lots of things. By the time I was 18, I had moved 83 times. And people always say, is that military? I say, oh no, that's mental illness. But as a young woman at 19, I became pregnant. And when that happened, I don't recommend unplanned pregnancies, but for me personally, It was a life-changing moment where I decided that I wasn't living for me anymore and that I had to learn to take care of myself, even if I had to teach myself. And I had to learn that, like you said, you have to have tools and you have to have what are you willing to, my mindset and the tools. But I also believe that third huge ingredient is we have to be willing to work hard to get what we want out of this life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started working in the corporate world. I climbed the corporate ladder. In 9 years, I got 5 promotions. And by then I was pregnant with my 3rd child, married, and my husband and I decided, let's stay home. So I stayed home and volunteered at church and school and sports. But then I bought my first gym. So 9 years in the financial world climbing, and then 12 years owning 2 gyms and learning to teach people about taking care of themselves, changing their mindset, changing their habits. Weight loss was often a side effect, but it couldn't be the main reason. So as an entrepreneur, I started doing that, and people started saying, hey, will you speak at our faith community? Hey, will you speak at our corporate office about health and wellness? And 7 years ago, I was like, I'm doing this full time. And 5 years ago, it really became a business. And so the more I spoke, the more I wrote, the more people are like, you kind of have this amazing mindset, and I want a little more Annie in my life. And so I started thinking about, it wasn't just steps or giving people more to do. It was about how I decided to show up every day. And so that book, Be the Exception, ended up winning a national award, which really launched my speaking career as I teach people the 7 ways of being to become exceptional and to live that exceptional life.
Got it. So, one thing that you mentioned, and I kind of can kind of relate to that is, having a kid at a young age. Fortunately, because just for me too, it was a blessing. And again, same thing. I don't condemn for anyone to go do that. I had my kid at the age of 16, and so my struggle and my journey really started at that point. Yet it allowed me to really find myself and really focus on something bigger than just myself. And so I wanted to know, from your perspective, prior to you having your first child or getting pregnant by your first child, do you feel like maybe there was no sense of purpose or direction? Because obviously you were moving around, there was a lot of things going on, specifically to you or for you. Was there any sense of maybe not perhaps having a direction or purpose? Because again, at the end of the day, it's like you were taking care of yourself or to an extent, right?
That's right. And so purpose was definitely lacking. Also, I don't think that I was really living. I think I got up every day and thought, how can I survive? How can I
Got it.
survive? And when I looked at other people and I thought, their life isn't falling apart every day, what would that feel like? What would that look like? Well, for me, I didn't know what that felt like. For me, it was like, I just have to survive. I'm hanging on to get through to the next day, to survive, really. And I always think about when people are going through crisis, which I feel like I kind of lived in crisis, you don't get a moment to breathe and to really, so finding my purpose. And for me, a lot of times when I teach, I'll talk about finding your purpose. And sometimes I'll show pictures of my kids and I'll say, to you, it might look like right now that my purpose is my kids, but they're not. My kids are not my purpose. Becoming the parent that I wished I would have had became my purpose.
Right.
And because of that, it wasn't just for the kids I got to raise, but it was for their friends or the community or teenagers at large, or being a mentor to young people. Because I was like, if I lived without having anyone encourage me or support me, there must be other people. And what if I could be that voice of encouragement, of belief, of seeing a young person that feels invisible, unloved, unwanted? And so that became my driving purpose. And though I primarily speak to adults today, I still have such a heart for young people and making sure they know the value of who they are and who they can become.
Yeah. No, and I love that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that maybe perhaps might be listening to this that they might be stuck in their own way, or they might be lost in transition of whatever life they're going through right now. And I love what you said. At the end of the day, you do have to find your purpose. You have to find something that is going to get you to the next level. And if it's unique for every person, yet the important thing is to do find that, right? So that you can actually start looking and working towards that purpose. Like, what is that drive, right? And I love how how I know you speak to people regarding that, which is pretty awesome. So let me ask you, so you got into corporate America and you were there for quite some time. How was that life? Because I know that there's a lot of people that might be working there and maybe they don't want to work there anymore. I just want to kind of get your input.
Yeah. I always say, don't quit your day job till you have a good backup plan. And we're seeing it now more than ever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have gigs,
Yeah.
and it's hard. It's hard to own your own business.
Yes.
It's hard to own multiple businesses, but make sure you have savings, make sure you have a plan. For me, the corporate world was predominantly male in the area that I worked in. So I was one of very few women there. I was 21 when I started and 30. And at the time I worked for Piper Jaffray for those 9 years, but they got bought by US Bank. So today it looks like US Bank invites me to the retirement party every year, and I go because I like to hang out with 80-year-olds too, and so I was a retiree of US Bank because at a little period of time, Piper was owned by US Bank. Now Piper is its own identity, and ironically, without my connection at all, my daughter works for Piper now in the corporate world.
Wow.
So it's a small world, but I liked it. It was always challenging. And for me, I like change. Part of being an entrepreneur is I love change. I love learning. So I was always applying for what's next. So I started as a receptionist there. Then I moved into the accounting department and worked with calculating commissions for the retail brokers. And then I moved up to syndicate, where private companies would become public companies. I worked in institutional trading, initiating half-penny sales and trade settlement. So kind of in the numbers. And one of the advantages to growing up really poor is every penny counts, right? And so I know money, I know numbers quite well. I was never good at reading, though I've gotten a lot better. I've already read 2 books this year. I'm super happy about that. Nice. I tend to start them and not finish them. But I loved the professionalism. I loved feeling like My job mattered. I was making a difference. Syndicate was fascinating to me. To work with entrepreneurs and watch their private company that they had grown become a publicly traded company was amazing. But for me, my personality, I'm such an inventor and creator myself that I needed to move out and become an entrepreneur. So if someone's listening and working in the corporate world, first of all, have a really good plan. Be honest with yourself. Have a really good budget and a healthy savings before you launch your own business. There's an amazing, incredible amount of work out there, but know that working 40 hours a week is a treat. When people complain about working 40 or 50, when you own your own business, I have to force myself to take a Sunday off, half a Sunday or a whole Sunday, because I always have work to do, whether it's creating content or following up with a client or creating a video, whatever it is. There's always someone looking for more from me. So as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily get paid. You can work hundreds of hours and get nothing. People ask me all the time, Annie, you're great at sales. I'm like, no, I'm just great at rejection, because I get 100 no's for every yes I get. And so being a business owner, I've had to learn that the amount of work I do doesn't always equal the paycheck. If I continue to work hard and plant seeds, it will turn into money at some point. There's a lot of times I work with no money. And so, just be honest with yourself, because it looks really beautiful out there to be an entrepreneur, and there are beauty about it, but it's a tremendous amount of work, and not everybody succeeds. So if you can afford it, hire a business coach to help you get successful with that. I work with a lot of people that want to become speakers, and they're like, it looks like so much fun and you're traveling. Yes, and that's just what you see. It's all the stuff behind the scenes that makes that happen. So.
Oh yeah, you know what? You have really good points there, and and I can definitely relate to a lot of those things. And so definitely, I like the idea of getting a coach, a mentor, someone that can help you with your journey, whatever you're trying to do, and really having a game plan. For me, I know when I left my job at the corporate, it took me about 7 months actually to actually do it. Like the day that I said I'm gonna do it, I was about to do it, and then I didn't walk into my boss and gave him my 2-week notice. It took me about 6 to 7 months to actually do it, because the fear sinked in, the unknowns, all these different voices came into play, and so for me, my journey was really 6 to 7 months to be able to do it. How was it for you? Like, did you have the game plan? Although I already had a game plan, I was already working on a side business that I had, and I started like 2 years prior to me quitting, 2.5 years. It wasn't an easy thing for me to do. So how was it for you to step out of, your comfort zone and then say, you know what, I'm going to take this leap of faith and just go 100%.
Well, and know that I didn't do exactly that. So I just want to be clear with the audience, because my husband and he had a full-time job still. He was a consultant full-time. He had his own company, but he had a nice contract. So when I left Piper, I was leaving to come home and spend time with the kids. And shortly after I came home with the 3 kids, my husband's like, we should own a business together. Should we buy a restaurant or a bar or a liquor store or maid service? And I was like, no, none of them got me excited. Everything he said, I was like, oh, what if we get robbed? Or what if this? I always had these, not that I was negative, but like I had seen other business owners struggle. And then when he said, what about a gym? I was like, oh, I don't even know if I like to work out. And then he said, but you love helping people. So we went and interviewed, and Snap Fitness and Anytime are both headquartered in Minnesota where I live. And so we interviewed them. And then when I met with Snap Fitness, they kind of described it's month to month. Now, as a business owner looking back, Anytime was more contract. We were month to month. Well, the month to month is much better for the consumer, absolutely. But as a owner, people were always leaving and coming. So it was like a leaky bucket. And so it wasn't as much of a full risk for me as some people. I'm glad you're saying fear, but maybe Cesar, it was knowledge and wisdom that stalled you for 6 months, because that's what I think people get emotional and go, I want to do this. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I always caution people, like, let's make a plan. Let's talk. Let's think about this. What are you planning on doing? How much is it going to cost? Like owning a Snap, people thought was $15,000. No, the name is $15,000. To start one up is about $250,000.
Wow.
It's a huge gap. And sometimes people don't have all the pieces. So I always like to educate people, like, you can love pizza, but that doesn't mean you're going to be great at owning a pizzeria, right? There's employees, there's money, there's advertising. And so just getting people to slow down their excitement and their passion to focus on, okay, what does this look like? What do I need in place? How is it going to play out? How does it work? And how will I get paid? And if I don't get paid, do I have enough savings? So I would say maybe you were wise rather than fearful in that caution that you took. Maybe you had your sixth sense telling you, don't jump until you have a strong plan and a little bit of money. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, even if, just more emotionally stable or mindset clear, different aspects, right? I definitely can see that for sure. So how was it for you guys when you guys decided to open up your own gym, stepping into that entrepreneurship roles in your life?
It was terrifying and exciting. So we had bought, the way that Snap works is you buy an area. So we had bought an area outside of St. Paul. And then we had 18 months to open that. And about 2 months into looking at different facilities, some were brand new and really nice, but super expensive. Some were really old and run down, but not up to code. So they'd need a lot of investing. 2 months into that, we were looking at going north about 25 minutes from our house. We got a call of a gym for sale 45 minutes south of our house in a town I had never heard of. And I've lived here a long time. And they're like, this town, New Prague, this guy wants to sell his gym. And we're like, well, why does he want to sell it? He only opened it in December and it was June. Only 6 months later, and we're like, why does he want to sell it? And he said, well, just come look at it. It's small. And he's a traveling salesman and whatever. And part of the Snap brand was you can buy it and run it absentee owner. And for me, I know that nothing, maybe it could be okay. You know how I say good to great? I mean, I want to be good to great to exceptional, right? Like, I don't know how to do anything halfway. When I speak, my friends tease me, Annie, 90%'s an A. And I'm like, not to me, 150% every time. I want to give so much more than is expected of me. I want people to say, holy cow, I got more information, more encouragement than I was anticipating. So we went and visited and the guy said, I don't like Snap. It's not going well. And so I said, okay, well, I like a challenge. I'm up for a challenge. And I knew it would really be my business. My husband and I would own it together, but I would be running it. I would be the face, the sales, the marketing, whatever. And so we decided to buy it. And the guy looked at me and we signed the papers with the lawyer. And as we were coming out of the elevator, he looked at me, he said, I've been bleeding for months. Now I'm hemorrhaging. Good luck to you. And walked out and I was like, oh, what did I just get myself into? But what I will tell you is 4 months later, we were number 4 in the nation. And they called me, they said, what are you doing, Annie? I said, I've literally knocked on every door in the town. We started a book club. I hired an amazing trainer. We had the coffee shop down a few feet from us, do different groups with us. We had, I created a ladies' night in that town, got a bunch of business owners together. We did events, we did giveaways, we made it fun. We gave away 1 week passes. I'd be there all day encouraging my clients. Working out with people if they needed someone to, not as a trainer, but just as an encourager. And I just did whatever it took because for me, I didn't ever want to be part of something that wasn't successful. And a year later, we built our second one back in that St. Paul area. And then 4 years later, we sold the first one. But we just were able to really grow them and be able to sell them for good money and be able to impact tons of lives and build community and get involved with the parades and the rotaries and the chambers. You have to give so much of yourself because nobody, no matter how great of employees you hire, which we had some amazing employees, cares about the business as much as you. Right. You know, when you're selling a gym membership for $30 a month and your overhead's $12,000 a month, you got to make sure you are giving more than keep retaining those clients, getting new clients, offering excellent personal training programs, supplements, whatever people needed, massage, chiropractic. We would try to partner with other people in healthcare to really serve our clients. So
I really love what, a few things that you mentioned. I just want to kind of go back to that because I think it's important for people to listen to this and regardless of what you're doing, whether it's in your personal or life or professional life or working for somebody else, it doesn't matter. One thing you mentioned is that I keep hearing back and back is the perseverance. You were very consistent. You were, like you said, you did whatever it took to make it happen. And sometimes people tend to give up so fast, so easy, without doing the work that it needs to be done to get to where you want to get to, right? And you guys didn't do that. You continued to do that, and then you got very creative, right? And a lot of times comes down to that, even in difficult times, is you're focused on one thing. You got to change that frame and look at it from a different perspective and do something different. And you did. You went out and got all these things that probably were not even related to the gym, yet you still were able to bring and attract people to what was the purpose at that point, which was the gym, and even create joint ventures and things like that. And I really love that, because again, a lot of times we as people tend to give up so fast. And you mentioned this earlier today, where you're okay getting 100 no's because that one yes is right behind it, right? So I really, really, really love that. Were there any things that you had to do in terms of just mind shift changes or habits that help you through this journey? I mean, again, going from moving all over the place to being in corporate to now having your own gyms, like what kind of changes you did to your mind, or your beliefs, or maybe habits? Were there any of that stuff that you worked on?
A lot of stuff, and continue to forever and ever. One thing I was thinking about going from being a corporate person to an entrepreneur is that I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I had to work 40 hours this week and I barely got a lunch, and thinking, I can't wait till I own my own business and I'll call the hours and I'll call the shots and I'll be the boss and I'll be the best boss. And it's like, okay, if you don't boss yourself around, you're not making any money. You can only work 20 hours a week. But then, like that man that we bought it from that said he was hemorrhaging, well, he wasn't doing his business. His machines were broken. He didn't have a cleaning service. So what I learned, one big thing was that 40 hours a week was a vacation compared to what I would end up working in order to drive these businesses successfully. I also had to learn that if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't serve my clients or my business the way it needed and deserved to be served. And so it really was a time in my life of reframing. And especially as a mom with young kids, it's so easy to put your kids first or to neglect yourself. And when I decided, you know what, it's not selfish to make time to go for a walk, to exercise, to drink a glass of water, to pray, whatever that quiet time is for me. In fact, it's self-full, because when I'm filled up, I can serve my family, I can serve my kids. I also had to be more organized. I had to have more structure and schedule so that I could be able to manage a household and a business and creating a new business or buying a new business or building. When you're doing those multiple things, you have to be organized. And it is not necessarily my nature to be organized, but when I made myself like, okay, what are you going to work on? And even now, because I have multiple businesses, I try to pick a day of the week and like, this day's a video day, this day's a writing day, this day's focus on speaking, this day's focus on, I still work with supplements. So share that or share a blog or a video. I try to be pretty consistent with the schedule on social media and with my time when I'm not in appointments or out traveling and speaking. Okay, what should I be working on today at home? Or when do I decide to bring my next book out? I have 2 more books in my mind. I'm not going to do one this year. I'm going to take this year off because I did release my 5th one last year. But, just thinking, being planned, being organized. To be a business owner, you're everything. You're not, even if you have a team of people, your sales, your marketing, your customer service, your cleanliness, if something doesn't work, it always falls on you. And another thing about a small business is people love meeting the business owner. They really do. So many of our clients loved it that we were right there hands on. If you have a complaint or a compliment, come. One of our gyms, people would drive over an hour to come to because they were like, you guys are the cleanest, friendliest gym. You created a community here. People didn't like working out, but they loved coming to this community. And not just us, but the whole, I don't want to take credit for my clients were amazing. My trainers were amazing, but that whole community that we were able to create for our clients.
Yeah, and that comes down to a value added service. You're creating some sort of value, and anything that you do, right? It comes down to that. What kind of value are you bringing? Because that's what's going to attract more of those customers, and people do love that, right? They do love to know that you're friendly, you're approachable, and they build that relationship with you, which is amazing. Now, in terms of you talked about multiple businesses. How critical is that to have more than just, as an entrepreneur, more than just one business?
I think it's a good question. It's a really good question right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard because if you're not an organized person, it's hard to be successful in multiple things, and one has to be primary. So for me, always speaking is number one. Speaking is my main thing. But without I have books, I do coaching and consulting. I have online courses. I sell Advocare supplements. So I have multiple things, but kind of got introduced at different times and grew. And one thing I like to teach people is, you said something before I wanted to respond to, but I can't remember, but is giving that giving your all to whatever it is. Oh, I know what I wanted to say, because you were saying what's different and what I created for my client. One thing that many of my audiences say to me over and over is, Annie, you really care about the audience, don't you? You really care about your client. Like, some people just do this. They're like up there, like talking monkeys. They get it out, they do it, they keep going. Who's next? And I genuinely care, whether it was in the gym or on the stage or when I write. I really care about how people are receiving what I'm teaching, that I'm hopeful that they will get something out of my books. Like, somebody just posted on Facebook a quote from my book, and she's like, I'm still reading your book over and over. And it's like, that's what I want, is I want it to be for them and about them, you know? But I think you have to be organized. I think it's good to have multiple streams of income, because the world is changing, as we know today more than ever. But if you put all your eggs in one basket, and that basket, the bottom falls out, what do you have? It's nice for me that people are still buying Kindle books and audio books and my paperback books and my workbooks and my online course right now, because people are afraid to gather. So a number of all of my March and April presentations have been postponed and rescheduled to later in the year. So I don't have that income coming in. So I'm grateful to still have books and courses and supplements and whatever. So I think it's important.
No, yeah, and that's I like the fact that, you know, have a primary business. And I remember for me, when I left my corporate, I had already started in real estate investing, so that was my primary business. And as a matter of fact, when I left, I thought that that's the only thing I was gonna do, right? And sure enough, little by little, other interests came about, and I started, growing, and then writing books, and also doing business and consulting, mentoring students, and now I got a bunch of different things going on for myself, and I'm glad, because although it keeps me pretty busy, as you mentioned, people tell me, when do you go on vacation? I'm like, never. When are you working? Never. I mean, it's like the same thing. Like, I'm always on vacation or I'm always working, right? Because it feels like, to me, both of them are the same now, because I have to enjoy what I'm doing pretty much 24/7, or else I wouldn't be doing this, right? So anyways, except I'm working a lot of hours or things like that, because of the different things that I have going on. And then even now with the difficult times, I'm glad I do have that. Yet when I left corporate, I never had the idea or even the thought that I was going to have multiple streams of income. I do put my real estate as my primary business, because again, I think there has to be that focal point, and then it kind of trickles down. One thing that I learned from me, and maybe the people that are listening will be good for them, is that I try to connect everything that I have going on, right? So whether it's my book or real estate or business consulting, is all kind of intertwined and working together, so that I don't lose focus too much, right? I don't know your thought on that is, except I think that the more you have multiple streams of income, as long as they're connected, I think it's probably more manageable and easier, right?
Absolutely. So for me, my big umbrella is teaching people how to be the exception, therefore being able to live an exceptional life. So I do that through speaking, through writing, through courses, through taking care of myself, which includes supplements for me. So it's all under that umbrella. Like, a lot of people live stuck or mediocre, or just like they're not very happy and they're not very satisfied personally, professionally, financially, relationships. Like, people are, when we talk about health, a lot of people think about physical, but I'm like, there's 6 areas of health, right? We have our emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, relationship, and financial health. And if you're unhealthy in any of those areas, it can make you physically sick. And so, it's all under that umbrella of helping people be healthy, be exceptional, not just get stuck in the mundane and living a miserable life until they die. That's not what we're created for. And so, yes, I think they have to have some congruency of how they fit together and how they move people forward. So if you're doing business consulting and real estate, then it's probably connected, right? And you're writing books, and so it's connected. So then people can kind of go, this is my vision. Here's some different tools. And what I teach people, Cesar, is, as a speaker, a lot of people are like, okay, I want a book and I want a course. And I go, just so you know, I never created anything until I already sold it. So I started as a speaker, but then people are like, you got to write a book. It's like, I don't want to write a book. You got to write a book. Well, now I have 5 books, but every single one of my books, I had buyers before I wrote it. You got to create an online course. I want to share you with other people. Okay, I had buyers before I created it. When I started creating videos, people were paying, requesting, can I have a video? Can you do a weekly for me? So I'm always creating as requested, rather than just creating and praying and hoping someone buys it. I'm like, okay, who needs this? And then when people ask me, I had one book sold 100 copies before I wrote it. And it's a gratitude journal, but they had heard a video of me speak about the way that I teach about gratitude, which is a little different than some people. And so they had already bought 100 books, or 150. I think it was their 100-year anniversary. And I did a Bible study, which I didn't really want to do. And they were like, we already sold a bunch. I sold like 8,500 of those on my first order. So I try to don't create so much that you just have it sitting and nobody's buying. Try to create as your clients, whether it's your coaching clients or your, whatever you're working with, as they request it, try to create more and more stuff for them. This is just so, there you go.
Yeah.
My sunlight is just shining in, which I love the sun, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about your books. So you have 5 books. Some of the, from my notes here, the latest books you have is The Exception and then Pineapple Principle, right?
Yeah.
Now I know the reason why you wrote the books. People were asking that. Yeah, tell me more about those books and maybe your latest project too.
Yeah. I'll show you the book so you can have a visual
Nice.
and kind of tell you how I wrote them or why. But this was my first book I wrote. And I wrote this because past detours and possibilities, because as you and I talked about, we're on a path in life, but then sometimes we have detours. And but I think that the detours sometimes derail people. And so for me, it was like teaching people there's still possibilities. There's always possibility. But this book is fairly blank. So if you look at it, there's questions and quotes on every page, and there's 4 short stories. But I wrote it because everyone kept saying, Annie, you have an amazing story. Oh my gosh, you've moved so much. You've done so much. And I'm like, so do you. We all have a story, and we all have lessons in that story. So I wrote this so people would write their own story. It was kind of my motive behind it. And then people started writing to me afterwards, like, Annie, I used your book and I had a better date night. My husband, my wife and I, we interviewed each other. My husband and I interviewed each other. Or I used it because my teenager doesn't talk. So I put it on their bed and said, I'll answer page 4. Will you answer 5? And somebody passed it back and forth for a year and they answered questions. But the best way this book was used that I know of was, again, I used it so people would write their own story, but a woman whose sister was dying in hospice and she interviewed her. And then after I wrote that book, that's when I hired a coach. So this one I self-published and just wrote on my own. And I had been writing a book. Someone heard me speak and they said, Annie, well, a lot of people like write a book, write your story, write your story. So for 20 years, I wrote a book called Dumpster to Dynasty. And it was about growing up in a physical, financial, and emotional dumpster and today living a dynasty life. But I was speaking at an event and this woman came up and she's like, you got to write a book. I said, oh, I am. I'm writing this Dumpster to Dynasty and it's about overcoming and it's about adversity and resilience and, becoming. And she said, don't write it. And I was like, why not? And she said, don't write a memoir, Annie. You are a teacher and you came out of so much darkness to become this light in the world. So teach us, how did you become the exception out of your 6 brothers and sisters? What did you do differently? How did you become? And so Wise Inc. is the name of the company I worked with. And what she would do is every Monday she would email me like what she wanted me to work on, like develop this story, get rid of this story. And I would send her, I started with 85,000 words. They got rid of most. We started over. And then once a month we'd meet face to face. So I hired her in September to start working with me. And March 1st of 2016, I had this book, Be the Exception. And it's the one that won the national award in the category of self-help. I did do the audio recording of it. So it's audio, Kindle, and paperback.
Did you do it yourself or you actually had somebody else do it?
I did it myself. So,
and
it's pretty emotional at the beginning. So you can hear my emotion. But people say, no, it just makes it more authentic. They call me Authentically Annie. But at the end of every chapter, I do an exercise. So like questions and answers. So it's 7 ways. It says 7 steps, but really it's like ways of being, like, be honest, be gentle, be flexible, be courageous. And so this book really launched my career. So in January of 2016, I posted about this on LinkedIn, and then people start saying, hey, you have content and you have a message. So that one grew. And then, as I told you, churches would say, will you come speak to us? And I was doing more corporate. And so they said, why isn't this Christian? And I said, everybody deserves hope, healing, and forgiveness. And they said, well, what does God say about it? We know you're a Christian. And so I wrote a Bible study. So these are meant to go together or separate, individually, or as a Bible study group or as a book club. And then this is the book that I sold 150 before I wrote it. So it's the Be the Exception Gratitude Journal. And it's just, the first page is just directions. The rest is all blank. But really it's about, if you live a grateful life, it's all about you. I had a place to sleep. I'm healthy. I have food. And that's good. I mean, it's good to think about what you have and to be grateful. But the problem in my mind with that is it's all about me. What's in it for me? What did I get? What do I get out of the day? And so what I really try to teach people is shift. So write down what you're grateful for, but then next write down, what did you give away? Did you give away encouragement, kindness, love, a smile, a listening ear to a repeated story of an elderly or a child? Did you give away support? Did you give away your time? And because I think when we live for other people beyond ourselves, not at the expense of, but beyond, that's when we go from a good life to a great life. Right. And for me, I want people to stay open. And I talk at a casino called Grand Casino. And I thought, well, how can people live a grand life, even better than great? And I thought, well, a grand life is about growing. It's about growing your mindset, how you see things, how you look at people, how you judge or don't judge, how you learn, what TED Talks you listen to, what videos you watch, what books you read, and who do you invite into your friends circle. So in Minnesota, we call it Minnesota Nice, which is nice, and people are nice here, but a lot of them have lived here a long time, and they will not invite in a new person. And for me, I find many people are lonely. And so I'm like, grow your friend circle, invite in the new neighbor, the new coworker. Don't just say hi at work, ask them over for the dinner, something. And so that book gives you directions, and then people use it and they write to me. But this is my newest book, and it's just a little teeny pineapple book. And it came about because somebody called me a pineapple. And I was like, what does that mean? I'm not a pineapple.
Yeah.
And she said, you're such a pineapple. I was like, what does it mean? She said, don't you know the poem? Do you know the poem, Cesar?
Nope, I don't.
I did not know the poem either. It goes like this: be a pineapple, stand up straight, wear a crown, and be sweet on the inside. Be a pineapple.
Oh,
so it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
But as people get to know me, they know that I am not really a cute speaker. I'm a deep speaker. I believe we all have a story, and that every story has lessons and meaning, and that we are meant to use our stories to become better and to serve others better. And so I asked myself, what does it look like? What is the principle behind the poem? And so I took that poem and I asked myself, what happens in a world if we all become pineapples? What does it look like to stand up straight? And what I find is that we live in a world where we take our cell phones and we look down. We're so busy looking down. I might wave at you, hey, Cesar, but I'm not really seeing you, right? Or I'm looking at you, but I'm looking at someone behind you who seems more exciting. Or I'm looking down because I'm self-conscious. And so I asked myself, what does it mean to look at people, to literally stand up straight and look people in the eye? And through that process, I met a woman in the bathroom, and ultimately she ended up running out to my car crying and saying, I'm 36 years old. You're the first woman to ever look at me and not judge me. Wow. When we wear a crown, I tell myself, when I wear a crown, I remember I value myself, but I also see your crown and that I value you. And if I ask myself every morning, Cesar, Annie, what do you want to get up and do today? You know what I want to do, Cesar? I want to lay in bed and eat 3 chocolate-filled donuts. It's what I want to do. But when I remember that I wear a crown and that I'm valuable, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up. I'm going to drink a glass of water. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take my vitamins. I'm going to do something to serve another person. Because when I'm valuable, I treat myself better than what I feel like. I just treat myself what I'm worth, right? And when I'm sweet on the inside, what comes out of my mouth and through the keyboard and what I spread in the world is positivity, encouragement, kindness, good news. And so I talk about each of the stories and what happened. I met a man when we talked about the crown, and he had talked to me about, for the last 5 years, he had been dead. And because of my presentation, he's chosen to come back to life and value himself and value his kids. And I think that these simple little 3 things can literally change the world. Like, people don't even know when they repeat a negative story or talk about somebody they hate in whatever platform of our world, it doesn't hurt that person. It hurts everybody you spread it to. None of us need more negativity. People are scared, overwhelmed, full of anxiety. And so this book just came out last May. I guess it's almost a year now. So 10 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's been a great, it's full of the stories of how being a pineapple has impacted people's lives. It's been a great hospitality thing for hotels and restaurants. But it's just been a great reminder of, it's not, you don't need 21 steps to change the world. You just need to look up and see people and be kind,
Yeah, I really love that. And some of the things you mentioned and the messages, I know Zig Ziglar said, when you give people enough what they want, you will get all of that you want, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about here, is that, be able to give more is not just about me and in your gratitude. I love that. I never saw it that way, right? And you know, a lot of times, I mean, I do that myself too, and I you know, write gratitude. Now I'm gonna change it, by the way. I do gratitude where, you know,
I don't want you to take it away. I just want you to add to it. Keep being grateful.
No, right, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna add to it. Where I'm you know, grateful for the day, for the day of opportunity, for my family, for the fact that I can see, I can, you know, do all these different things. Yet I like the fact that now you can add more to it. And it's like, okay, what did you give in return? What were you spreading? And I love that. And even with your, and then with your book, the pineapple principle, um, I love that story. I love what you're talking about and how that's really empowering other people. And it comes down to that, is that gratitude of being able to know that you helped somebody else in their journey, or you impacted somebody. And I love that, because it kind of aligns with the things that I'm doing too. And I want to do is really, how can I empower people? How can I motivate people? How can I inspire them to become better and come out of, you know, whatever they're going through, to say you are great, you can overcome anything, and do those things for your life. So that is amazing. I love that. Now, so you're speaking, you've done a lot of speaking engagements.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that, because I know a lot of people want to get into that, and that is also two things. Number one, that is the people fear most public speaking than anything else in the world. Number two, it is also one of the best things you can do as you know, in terms of a career, right? Spreading that love and that communication. So
Yeah.
tell me about your story and how that plays with you.
Yeah. And because so many people come to me that want to be speakers, I always say, first of all, if you're learning to speak or learning to be confident in the front of the room, go to Toastmasters. It's extremely affordable, and it's a great place to gain confidence and clarity and speak. I personally have never been part of Toastmasters, but I've sent a lot of people there. If you are comfortable and confident in your speaking, then go to the National Speakers Association, and there's chapters everywhere, because that will teach you the business of speaking. So the National Speakers Association, look for the local chapter. But the big things I like to teach people is, most people want to speak because they think they have a great story, which we all have great stories. But speaking is about two main things to be successful in it. Number one, it's not about you. I do not care how tragic your story is, how wonderful your story is, how amazing you are. It's not about you. And until we learn to speak about the lessons we learned through our struggles, through our success, through our tragedy, no, people will listen to your story for free if you have a great story. But in order to get paid, and paid well for your story, you must take your story and figure out the lessons you learned, and then make it I can't think of the word, applicable
Yeah.
to anybody in any audience, right? So when people hear me speak, they're like, oh, I went through a divorce too. I've never been divorced, but they think that that's how by how I share. Or, oh, my mom died. Well, my mom's still alive. So my story is so universal that people think I'm telling their story, and they're talking about a business success or failure, or getting that promotion, or climbing the corporate ladder, or a child with behavioral, whatever it is. I teach it in a way that you think I'm telling your story as I share mine, because I'm teaching the lessons. So it's not about you as a speaker. I want to tell people. And number two, be flexible, be flexible, be flexible. So whatever you get hired for, I get hired sometimes for 20 minutes. I get there, they want an hour. I get hired for an hour, they now need 3. I get hired for 90 minutes, they now only have 40. I have to be like, somebody told me, you are a meeting planner's dream. You're the best speaker I've ever had to work with. Because a lot of people make it about us. But when I go, how can I best serve you? What do you need from me today? I know our contract says this, but things change. And I have to be able to be flexible and make it about them. So for 2 years, I taught an academy to help people become professional speakers. And they'd be like, I have a great story. And I'd say, I don't care. And they were like, whoa, you're kind of mean. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not meaning it mean. I'm telling you, you can go speak for free and tell your story. But if you want to make more money, teach us the lessons that I can apply to my own story, my own personal, professional life journey. And so I started by speaking in the faith community. I used to speak to junior high kids, then high school kids, then women's ministry, then couples ministry. Then as a gym owner, I spoke to small businesses that wanted me to do health and wellness. And I would do anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, hour and a half for them. And then I spoke for United Way for 2 years, only 5 weeks at a time for 2 years. But in those 5 weeks, I probably spoke to 250 companies, anywhere from 4 minutes to an hour presentation about why it matters to help other people and about where their money goes, because I could be a symbol of a success story of a person who didn't have much success as a young person and how I became. And so that's how I spoke. And I really got into tons of corporations doing that. When I started doing that, people would call me and be like, can I coach with you? Like, I'm an executive at 3M, but you're amazing. And I'm like, okay, I've got my GED. I'm a high school dropout. I never finished college. You want to coach with me? And they're like, you're so wise. You have this like positivity and wisdom that I want in my life and I'm missing it. And so I got certified as a coach. That happened because of people wanting to work with me before I had the clients. And so that's how I kind of got my chops, is what I would say, is by speaking a ton for very little, if any, money. But then I became part of National Speakers Association. I started volunteering. I got on the board. I'm the past president until July. I finished my term last year. And then I facilitated the academy 2 years. So I'm all about giving, and because I'm always learning. Because if 10 or 25 new speakers come in and they're enthusiastic, I can see their mistakes and what will help them and what won't. And I can shorten their curve so they don't have to think, pick me, I want $10,000. It doesn't work like that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I speak as often as I can, all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
So I had 40 on the books before March 10th of this year. And I don't know how the year will play out. I'm optimistic, but I know that my presentations are not a priority for all my clients right now. So.
Yeah. And are you with everything going on, have you done any, or are you doing any kind of virtual presentations, or I know there's a lot of people doing that now.
Yeah, I just got off the phone this morning with a woman that we were going to partner and do a webinar together. I'm probably getting 25 invites to a webinar a day. I'm inundated. So what I chose to do instead of that is I have about, I don't know, close to 500 clients since 2015. So what I did is I reached out to every single one of them. I sent them an email and I offered them 5 things, all free gifts from me. I offered that I would do an inspirational or a silly video that they could share with them, for them as the leader of an organization, they can share with the team. I offered a blog about encouragement. I offered the top 10 of social isolating. I offered that I would send them free books, of copies of my books, to encourage themselves and their staff. And I did offer, my final thing was that I would do a high school or college commencement if they or a family member or friend is graduating and doesn't get to have their commencement, because I've had the opportunity to do commencements in the past. And I got a ton of response and people so grateful. I said, these are all free gifts from me to you, to thank you for being there when I needed you, and I want to be there for you. And yesterday I did my first video, and I did it in a pineapple onesie, because I thought, out of all these things I'm offering, so the people that said, yes, I said, pick which number you want, pick it if you want all of them, you know, what you want. I sent it out because I was thinking, more than anything, we need silliness right now. So I'm going to start with that. So I put on this pineapple onesie with a crown, and I sent that out to my clients. I don't want to create, personally, I don't want to create anything for sale right now, or even a webinar of too much content. Like, a lot of my clients are social services, healthcare providers, senior housing, nursing associations. They are overwhelmed. And what they need right now is just a little bit of love and silliness. And so I just want to gift that.
And that's something that I realized that throughout at least my life, the more love, the more silliness, you know, the more you smile, the more you put out any of that, it doesn't matter the situation, things tend to turn out better, you know. And again, sometimes you don't know what people are going through, and they might just need to see that or hear something that's great, you know. And so it's always good to do that. I think it's definitely something that we want to be able to embody in our lives and our day-to-day lives, and just spread more of that. I think is very, very good. If we can do all of that, I think we'll definitely be in a better place, you know.
That's right.
So I love that. Sorry about that. So, Annie, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And that is, if you can tell our listeners and viewers one advice that they can utilize now to overcome anything in their lives, what would that be?
What first popped in my head is, this isn't the end of the story. But one of the things that I try to live by every day is fact check. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of messages in the world coming at us, right? Some are coming internally. Oh my gosh, this isn't going to work out. Oh my gosh, I'm going to fall apart. So fact check it. Is that a true story? What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? what's one productive thing can I do today? So I always try to like think about what is the actual truth in this thought or in this story that I'm listening to or that I'm repeating. What's the actual truth? Okay, the truth is it's unpredictable right now. The truth is I don't know what tomorrow brings, but the truth is that I am here today. The truth is I am healthy today. The truth is that I can send some encouragement or silliness or joy out into the world, and that's a privilege. The truth is that I am a blessed woman and I live a more exceptional life than I ever dreamed. So when people are listening and thinking about this, Cesar, my encouragement to them is check what you're thinking about, check what you're hearing about. Is it the truth? Does it instill fear or hope? Also is another big thing I process through. It's like a strainer. Is this producing more hope in my life or more fear? And if it's more fear, I just remove it. I'm very cautious about what I watch, what I listen to. Right. And mostly because I have to keep myself healthy, body, mind, and spirit, so I can do the good work I've been called to do to encourage people, to help people. So fact check and don't give up and look for the good and give a lot, not expecting in return, just give.
Yeah, no, and I love those points, and it goes back to the same thing. I believe a lot that whatever you know, just like a healthy diet, right? You want to eat good, you want to work out, you want to do all this stuff so you can look good from a healthy perspective. I also believe that in the same token, your mind is a muscle, so you have to make sure that you fit the right ingredients, positive messages, none of this garbage, because we do have a lot of garbage going on, and so you want to be able to take that away and just not focus on that. And I love that, because I'm like you, I try to stay away from anything that might be negative, or I don't really watch TV. I haven't watched TV for many years for that same reason, right? It's very important for us to do that and giving back. I mean, that's amazing. If people wanted to connect with you, find you, maybe speak to you, what would be a good place they can find you?
Yeah. Hopefully, if they just Google Annie Meehan, ANNIEMEEHAN, they should be able to find my website. They should be able to find my, I have a lot of videos, over 200 videos on YouTube, because I just love to give and encourage. I'm pretty active on Facebook and LinkedIn, a little bit on Twitter and Instagram. But I'm just trying to give back, so I know many people have found comfort and encouragement in my videos. So YouTube or my website's Annie Meehan. My YouTube is Annie Meehan. I try to just make it my name and make it
very
easy.
Simple.
Yeah,
Just Google Annie Meehan or find her anywhere with that, and you definitely will find her. So that's awesome. Well, Annie, I really had a great time speaking to you. I'm very thankful to having you in the show and sharing your wisdom with our listeners and viewers. Any last words before I let you go?
Be the exception. Don't do what everyone else does, because when you are the exception, you truly can live an exceptional life.
I love it. Annie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure that you share, like, comment on this podcast. Please make sure you put a comment, and you can find us on Spreaker.com, Apple Podcasts, all your platforms. You can also find us on YouTube. Until next time, see you guys and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.
Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like life is against you? Do you feel like you can't get ahead? Well, we have a podcast for you. You can overcome anything with Cesar Espino, real estate investor and real estate coach, NLP practitioner, and author of the book of the same name. Cesar will show you a way to overcome anything in your life through talking with people from all walks of life that have done just that. You Can Overcome Anything podcast available on Spreaker.com.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.